Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. You are the ones with staying power. You actually got here without a train, at least I assume you must have done, and you're here with us for, although it's only 3:15, this is in fact the final session of the show. So welcome to it. We're going to talk about hotels are not just a place to lay your head. The future is multifaceted. So we all know that hotels make their money out of rooms and food and beverage. But what else is there? I'm joined by a fantastic panel of people who know so much more than I would ever about this topic, so it's lucky that I'm asking the questions. I'm Peter Hancock, and to my left is Ben. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Ben, and tell us a little bit about your business.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ben. I'm Managing Director for a group of companies. We have Watergate Bay Hotel in Cornwall. We have Another Place, which is our second hotel business, which is currently operating in the Lake District on the shore of Ullswater. We have a self-catering business called Beach Retreats, and we have a bath and body range called Land and Water, who are available for sales bottom right-hand side of the exhibit.
Never miss a trick.
No. Thanks for inviting me on.
Thank you very much. And Tara.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm a Sales and Marketing Director for Eden Hotel Collection. So we have 5 hotels within the collection. Bovey Castle, which I'll probably talk about a little more today, Dartmoor. We also have Mallory Court Hotel, Leamington Spa, the Arden Hotel in Stratford-upon-Avon, the Greenway Hotel in Cheltenham, and Brockencote Hall in Worcestershire. And I don't have a stand with anything to sell today. Just me.
Very good. Thank you. Paul Bayliss. I should say Paul Bayliss, MBE, because he's too modest to tell us.
Oh, thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. I'm the regional general manager for the Hotel Brooklyn brand. We've got a couple of hotels already, one in Manchester and one in Leicester, and a couple more in the pipeline, possibly in the northwest, but that's still to be announced. It's about 200 keys each hotel, and it focuses on accessibility, but that's not to say we can't allow anybody in for a great time.
And Chris, we've billed you as the co-founder of Birch. I believe you've stepped away from running that business at the moment, but you know so much and you still have a lot of lead in your pencil, if I can put it that way, as far as career is concerned. Tell us about your status.
Yes, I'm Chris Penn. I've worked across many hotels over the years, and then about 6 years ago I went out on my own to build my own businesses, of which I built 2 brands. One which launched in the middle of a pandemic, which is a bit silly, trying to launch something in the middle of a pandemic. And that was Birch. I left Birch at the beginning of this year after 2 years post-pandemic of crisis management, but also a lot of interesting development in that product and that brand. And that's a multifaceted business, and I'm now building some other things, other visions, as well as I'm involved in a couple of big projects that are scaling up and would like to understand how to set up for scale.
So you are the insatiable entrepreneur, aren't you, really? You
That's
can't
what you
stop
say, Peter.
starting things.
Yeah, that's what you say.
Okay. Well, I've got a couple of questions that I've thought of for you, so we'll get the conversation started with those, but we may go in any direction, really. What activities or services do you offer? I'll start with you, Tara, beyond accommodation and F&B.
Okay, well, I'll talk about specifically Bovey Castle, which is on Dartmoor. We've got over 25 different types of country pursuits, anything from fishing, shooting, fawn feeding. So there's a real array of different types of activities, but obviously we're blessed to be on Dartmoor and to be able to offer those kind of country pursuits.
You've got displays of birds of prey, I think. Is it every day or every weekend?
Every day, every day.
Yeah.
So falconry
Impressive.
every day. And what works so well for us currently is that we have some free activities that we put on every day, and then some more immersive activities that lead on from that. So yeah, the example of the falconry is a really good one. We have that daily at 10 o'clock that anybody can come to when they're a resident. But then we go into further depth and you can have an hour's private falconry. And we find that really works. And that works on a level where somebody's just that bit more interested.
And is
maybe
that
wants
expensive?
It ranges anywhere from £120 upwards, depending.
I'd say
Depending
that
on
was
that
quite
time.
expensive, but obviously there's a demand for it, so
Yes,
that's good.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And what about you, Paul?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's best to talk about what we do differently with regard to the hotel, because we don't do much different. We have great food and beverage operation, great room sales, meeting and events, but it's the fact that we can allow anybody to come in because of the way the hotel was designed. Robin Shepherd, the president of Bespoke Hotels, was invalided a few years ago, so it was like gamekeeper become poacher with regard to design of a hotel. So when he had the chance to build one, he put accessible rooms at the forefront of it. So that allows, I think it's about £9.5 billion worth of accommodation for people to stay at hotels, put us at the forefront of it. So we keep winning awards about it. It's not being arrogant, it's just the fact that nobody else is doing it. And if you can allow everybody to come into your hotel, then you're ahead of the game in terms of, I suppose, Manchester City Council, which is a big operation. They promote us to groups and people looking for accessible accommodation more than any other hotel. So it's free advertising.
And
it's really good.
is this perhaps partly because of Robin Shepherd's position as a champion for accessibility? He is the president, I think, isn't he, of Bespoke Hotels?
That's right, yeah.
You operate under the Bespoke brand.
He is, yeah. And I think the important thing about it is that it sits really high on TripAdvisor. It's always in the top 5 or 6 every month, about 95% positive feedback, and only 1 or 2% of the stays are accessible. So it's a cool, trendy hotel, or set of hotels like in Leicester. We've got a second one, but it delivers what people need in terms of accessibility, and then you can hide it. So the rooms are designed in such a way that you wouldn't know you're in an accessible room, and that's the secret of it. Probably costs a little bit more, especially when you're renovating, but if you've got a new build and you put it into it, you'd open yourself up to a massive market.
So do you think you're getting customers that other hotels are not getting because you have these accessible facilities?
Totally, yeah. So different societies like Cystic Fibrosis Society use our hotel, about 50, 60 bedrooms on a regular basis. And the reason they do it is because we provide the services for them. And it's a really smart hotel. I'd advise everyone to go on the website so we can increase our database. But please do have a look at it. They are great hotels.
I'm sure the OBE is only a few weeks away for you.
Is that it? I thought it was a night out. There you go.
What about your business, Ben? So putting the accommodation and the F&B, which we all know about, to one side, what else are you able to offer your customers?
Well, it's a good question for us because essentially everything that happens around the edges of the core F&B and accommodation elements is what makes us different, unique, and it's what we have built our business on and our brand on. And the founder's vision at Watergate to create what we talk about as a ski resort on the beach. And if you think about a ski resort where you have multifaceted, different hospitality, leisure.
Forgive me interrupting, but I would always associate a ski resort with a slope.
Well, you interrupted before I got to the answer. No, I mean, if you think about a ski resort on the beach, where you don't have a mountain, you have a beach. So this ecosystem of different hospitality, leisure experiences that all connect to one thing, which in a ski resort is a mountain, and on a beach is the beach. So Watergate is built on a concept of active relaxation, so the ability to get out into the water, to learn to surf, to walk the coastal paths, but that is key to who we are, and it's also the key to our other brand, which is Another Place. So our version of that on Ullswater is the fact that we have a best-in-class water sports centre where people can learn to open water swim, they can get in a kayak, they can do all sorts of outdoor experiences, but on the doorstep of the hotel, and then come back to the hotel and enjoy great hospitality, great F&B afterwards.
Very good. And is that centre part of your business? So you're actually earning money from those activities, are you?
We are earning money, but it's it's an interesting one for us because whilst we look at them as profit centres, as a horrible corporate way of putting it, 80% of what we do for our active elements is partnered. So we have found that partnering with best-in-class entrepreneurial specialists in their field really adds that layer of authenticity, drives the experience for that particular area. And so, for example, at Watergate, we've recently partnered with a best-in-class surf school in Cornwall to do that. In the lake, we've partnered with a guy called Colin Hill, who is an ex-GB open water swimmer, and we've helped him establish and set up his business within our site, which has been a key success in delivering these experiences in a really authentic way. So I suppose the short answer is, whilst there is a commercial driver, actually in isolation, it's not a huge money spinner, but it adds to the whole value.
Sure.
It drives occupancy. It de-seasonalizes our businesses.
Yes, and with these partnerships you just mentioned, presumably you're sharing the risk as well.
We are sharing the risk. We're sometimes supporting them in the setup of their businesses. We offer them premises. We offer flexible commercial arrangements, which de-risks it for them, actually more importantly than us.
Yes.
And also we structure it in a way where we share in success.
Very good. And in your recent experience, Chris, sources of revenue outside the normal?
Yeah, so when I concepted Birch, I was more inspired by the festival world, so wanted to create a concept that replicated the kind of experiences and income streams that a festival proposition would, but deliver it 365 days a year. And I built it on 5 pillars, which were wellness, nature, art, food, and community. The first 4 were pillars that would result in tangible, physical, and experiential things to get involved in. And then the 5th was more a methodology and an ethic by which to bring everything together through that sense of community. So if I look at wellness, we were offering, and still offer, breath workshops, yoga sessions. We built a spin studio. We would do boot camps in the land, but we would do a multitude of different wellness offerings, gong baths as well. In food, we had the traditional income streams of restaurants and bars. So we won't go on to that because you asked what we did differently. In nature, we built a farm. We did growing workshops, farm walks. You could go and meet the chickens, which we brought from rescued from battery farms. So there were a multitude of things that you could learn and get involved in, either through workshops or talks in the land. And then arts, we have done everything from our own music festival to drag bingo to axe throwing to spoon whittling. So it's a multitude
Please tell
of
me
different things.
that drag bingo was your own idea and that you drag up for it.
So sadly, I did not dress in drag myself,
I'm
Peter,
quite surprised.
but I have been known to, but not on that occasion.
You have. We should qualify that, shouldn't we, in case your
You can
reputation
if
is
you
in
wish.
tatters. The last time I saw Chris Penn, he was dolled up as the wicked stepmother in a production of Cinderella, in which I had a very minor part also. This was for Springboard, wasn't it?
It was,
And
yeah.
you were magnificent, sir.
Thank you, Peter.
Yes, you were. So how do we translate this in the marketing for a hotel? Because I think, there's a mixture of ages here. I can remember going to Travel Mart years ago, and all the hoteliers talking to travel agents were showing them photographs of their lovely new marble bathrooms and the comfortable beds, the plates of delicious food. And they were all the same. Every hotel was showing off the same attributes. And of course, that isn't good enough, is it now? So what you've been talking about, these creative extra things, are really the reason to stay for a discretionary stay that's not a business one in any given property, aren't they? So how do you get that across in the marketing?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a great hotel, so we do most of the things that traditional hotels in the city centre would do. We go to leisure and corporates, we go to the travel agents, we advertise on our websites and things like that. But in terms of accessibility, then people coming towards us, we found we don't have to do that much to us. It's word of mouth. The agents and the people who sell stays with regard to that, come to us, and the reason is because as an industry, we haven't paid attention to it, and it's undersubscribed. So people are desperate to get out, obviously, after the lockdown, and they want the provision in the hotel that we can provide, I suppose. I mean, it's not perfect, and there are compromises in terms of guests in wheelchairs and things like that coming through. And it's not the main thing what we do, but it's undersubscribed, so we tend to win out. Even, as I said, the City Council promoters about it, and to get groups of 60, odd through the week against 300 odd other hotels is great.
You've sort of found a gap in the market, rather in the way that luxury family hotels did all those years ago, when they thought, hey, why don't we have a luxury hotel that children are allowed into? Yeah. It's a little bit like that, isn't it?
It's exactly like
and everyone says, oh, why didn't we think of that before? And now, of course, we all realise.
It is. It's Robin's concept, but it's a gap in the market that'll only get bigger. If you think about it, we're all getting a little bit older, and we're all getting more aware of our wellness and other people's, and having a bit more respect for it.
Yes.
And that's how we win out, and it's not like going after it and grabbing that market or that demographic. It just works for us really well.
And let's face it, you and I are not that far off infirmity ourselves, are we, Paul?
You speak for yourself.
Tara, you are the maestro as far as marketing is concerned for the Eden Hotel collection. So how do you get it across to potential customers, all these extra things that you're able to offer?
I think these days it's more about, rather than where can I go, it's what can I do.
Yes.
And that's what we really try to get across in our marketing. And it's about creating that feeling. It's a little bit like we've invested heavily in film work over the last 12 months. And rather than asking somebody to watch a film, this is what it's like, we want people, this is what it feels like when you're there, very emotive, and to really, drag people and draw people in that sense. So, platforms and social media, they all help with that and to get the brand out there, but it's really creating something that almost makes them feel that they're there without actually being there.
Yes. Well, I've seen some of your films. I can certainly confirm it does have that effect. How long are they typically?
We've got a variety. I mean, the longest probably 1 minute 30, which is probably about long enough, I think, for people to keep people's attention. And we break them down into 10-second reels, 20-second, 30-second reels. Then we've started to spot what we would call spotlights. So we'll create a spotlight on a particular activity, slow gin making, for example, cider making, and we give them just enough information to understand it, but leave them just wanting that little bit more, and that little bit more is actually visiting and experiencing it.
And can you track the results of that? Can you see bookings or visitors to your site attributable to those pieces of film?
We can see the movement, obviously, on the website, so we can see when people have been active in the film, and then they've been clicking online and they've gone to our online basket and put that stay in the basket. New to us, really recently, is a beekeeping experience. So we're just about to sort of start launching that, and the idea is to get children involved. I haven't done it yet, but I'm desperate to do it. You get suited up, and you just understand that little bit more. And again, I think I touched on it earlier. It's that educational part of an experience as well now.
And that would be for an extra charge. You charge for that. How much will you sting your customers for that?
Beekeeping anywhere, depending on whether it's a family, so anywhere from £100 per person.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you using film in that way, Ben?
Yeah, very much so. Just to build on that, really, it's content. So if you look at our platforms, we very rarely talk about a holiday in Cornwall or the Lake District, but it's more about subscribing to a very aspirational but relevant and accessible lifestyle. And I think all of what you said, but one other point that we've really landed on in the last couple of years is finding brand ambassadors who can do that with their own voice very authentically. So a good example is recently in the Lake District we had Jo Wiley to stay. She stayed with us for 2 days, and it wasn't an influencer trip. It was off her own back, but she went out into the lake with with Colin Hill, our instructor. She did a moonlight swim. She posted on Instagram. It went absolutely mad, and it's really our story told by someone in their own voice, which really resonates and it really lands with people. And I think that's been something that we've tested a lot over the last couple of years.
Who would be your ultimate advocate? Somebody famous who you'd love to talk about your hotel?
Peter Hancock.
Well, that's an interesting idea. Of course, I will do anything for money, but I expect you've heard that already.
We've had some really good results. I say results. We had Giovanna Fletcher and Tom Fletcher stay with us. We had another very, very famous singer who I can't talk about, who might have been in a very successful boy band with us just recently. We had...
Did Robbie have any special requests?
It was his mate. It was his mate.
Oh, right.
But no, it's finding... it's really connecting with people who we think our audience can resonate with, but curating stays with us that feel really relevant, that feel very authentic, and do not feel commercial.
Right. Very interesting indeed. And I was going to ask you whether you thought, you lot, that there were any downsides to this, in terms of, would you be putting anybody off if you say too much about the extracurricular stuff? For example, Paul, if somebody who is able-bodied and is considering whether to go to your hotel in Leicester or your hotel in Manchester as against others that are similarly priced, might they think, oh, wait a minute, that's the disabled place, isn't it? Let's not go there. Is there any downside to it?
I suppose, talking about it, the accessibility side, it
Can you hear Paul okay? Can you hear him? Yeah. Good. Sorry about that.
It could be, I suppose, if we overdid it, and that's why I'm always keen to talk about, the hotel is up there with the best of hotels in Manchester with regard to able-bodied people.
Yeah.
If that's the way we want to talk it. I've learned an awful lot about accessibilities in the 4 or so years since I've opened these hotels. And everybody's got challenges, so it's just a matter of what accommodation they're looking for, you know what I mean? But it's just getting that across, really, that it is a great hotel for able-bodied people.
Well said. Now, you gave us a lovely description, Chris, of the...
I was going to answer the last question, but if you want to carry on, Peter,
Yes, answer the last question. Go on. I was trying to turn this into a conversation.
You can turn it
I don't know why I'm bothered.
The only reason I was going to do that is I was going to say, do you like Marmite?
Well, not very much,
But
no.
you know what it is?
Yes, I do.
So not everything has to be created and told in a way that everybody will like.
Yes.
But you can still respect things you don't like. So I think one of the problems in the industry is people try to market a hotel. You can't market a hotel. You can market an experience that starts to kind of play into people's hearts. You can sell a hotel because ultimately it's a commodity, but you can't market it. So when you market something, you have to know who your consumer is, and you have to be super tight on who that consumer is to have meaningful engagement with consumers. Therefore, it doesn't matter as long as you know who your consumer is and there are enough of them that like Marmite, otherwise the product won't sell. So that I just wanted to ask that quick question before you ask the next question.
No, point very well made. And of course, what you're saying is that you've got a target audience and you know they'll love it. And let's not try and be all things to all men.
Well, if you go out and you say, my demographic is from the age of 0 to 99 plus, and we like people that are in jobs, out of jobs, from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west, and then you try to market to them, you will basically create an online travel agent and then have multiple products. That's the only way that you can do it.
Yes, understood. Would anybody else like to answer questions that they feel they've not yet answered?
What was the question?
No, I'll move on to the next one now. So we think it's quite important, don't we, to have a relationship within one's local community. And maybe today's customers are more interested in that than they would have been 20 years ago. Could you tell us a little bit about how you interact and how you involve yourself as a business with the local community, starting with you, Ben?
Sure. Community's everything to us because of the locations within which we operate. So Watergate, for example, we are a beach that's open to the wider community, whether that be locals coming to surf or other holiday makers who aren't connecting with the hotel, but just there to be on the beach. But I think that we can do that in a number of ways. One, through services that we offer, whether that's infrastructure, the way in which we connect with the local community on a recruitment level, the way that we make sure that our experiences are both applicable to the local community as well as our hotel residents. So it's something that we're really driven by. I think just to finish off, we've recently submitted our B Corp submission, which you might be familiar with, and one of the pillars within that is community and how practically we connect with our communities, and it's been a big focus for us, and it's been a big motivating factor in making sure that we always have community within our decision making.
And what do you feel that B Corp certification will do for you?
If you want to get fit, sign up for a marathon. Is a straightforward way of putting it. We needed something to focus our... We always knew that we were good on the sustainability piece, but sustainability is such a broad-ranging subject, and we needed something to connect it all up, and we needed something to target.
And to verify.
Correct. And it's less about the stamp, it's more about the mindset. The most pleasing thing for me in our journey, which has taken us 2 years to get to the point of pushing a button on the submission, is that since day one, we've been behaving like a B Corp organisation, so balancing people, profit and planet. And it's been a real mindset shift, a real cultural shift. And I suppose the last point is that it's really, really connected with our people in a way that is far beyond my expectation. So when it comes to our employer brand, which everyone's thinking about in this room, it's been, and it will be key, but whether we get it or we don't get it is actually unimportant to me because we're already behaving like it.
Yes,
and we're delivering on the values and the principles of B Corp.
Very good. And what about your properties, Tara? Your interaction with the local community, and maybe following on from Ben's point about ticking the social responsibility boxes too.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's important, and it's really important to resonate with the people on your doorstep, really closely on your doorstep. So with the collection of 5 hotels, we very much focus on the general managers and what community functions they want to get engaged with and get involved with. We have a really lovely giving back experience at Christmas, whereby we choose a charity that part of our proceeds from our Christmas packages go back into that charity, but the GMs are actually out there with that charity and making that connection. And I think sometimes you can do some really great work, but actually it's those people making the connections within the community and how that comes back. If you give out, it comes back to you in other ways.
Yes, it's quite nice to hear you all talk about things that you're doing voluntarily. I am afraid I have met hoteliers over the years who only really get involved with the local community when they want planning permission for something, and it's a last-ditch attempt to bribe their neighbours not to put up an objection. But Chris, with your experience behind you, in what ways have you sought to curry favour with local community?
I'll try and answer it differently. There's the obvious, and I don't mean that disrespectfully in terms of you pointed out the obvious, but there's the things that you guys have discussed which I think are really relevant about the people in your local community. I think community can be a lot wider than it used to be, and I think, Ben, you guys doing B Corp is brilliant. There are very few hotel companies that have successfully gone through B Corp, and that's a very rigorous process. But I would say community can also be the natural community around you, and I think a lot of hotels exist without consideration of the natural environment around themselves. Even golf courses, the amount of pain that causes a local ecological system by us as human beings enjoying things in the way that we want to enjoy them. What I certainly built in Birch was a feeling that we should be very respectful of that community just as much as we should the human community. Therefore, thinking about, well, actually, maybe we don't mow lawns, and maybe we should be helping nature to flourish around the experiences that the humans want to have. So I would answer it in that way, where it's very easy to say, well, we'll do things for humans because humans are naturally selfish in protecting our own species. But I think there's a lot more that we could all do, and we've certainly tried to do that with the recognition of all of these other species that exist around us, and that if we're building new buildings and if we are flattening land, that we're actually destroying some of those other communities that exist around us.
Yes. Okay, so being very sensitive to nature and your impact on the
Yeah.
environment in that way. We've got to move on because we want to try and include some questions from you, ladies and gentlemen, if you have some for us. But I would like to ask each of you what plans you have in mind for maybe next year. Is there anything that you're thinking of doing that you haven't already been doing next year?
Shall I go first?
Please do.
Yes, one of our values is to constantly change and innovate, and
Right.
that's a very broad. So we are shortly to announce that we will be expanding our beach retreats business, which is our self-catering agency, and we'll be moving into a world of operating lifestyle-focused apart hotels on beaches. And that's taking some of what I learned in my previous business, which was in the urban apart hotel space, and blending it with what I know now to be a relatively traditional self-catering market, as well as having experience now for 5 years of operating lifestyle leisure hotels like Watergate Bay and another place. So if you consider the self-catering market in its relatively traditional sense, so a fishing cottage in a small Cornish village, and blending it with the best bits of what you would get at Watergate Bay Hotel, I think you find a really sweet spot in the middle of what I call a leisure apart hotel, and we're going to find a better way of explaining it. But that is an initiative that we're working on actively now, and we've got a acquisition in sight, and I think we'll be probably 60 to 90 days away from announcing something.
If there's anyone here who's starting to feel a bit desperate and you might want to exit, perhaps this is somebody to talk to if you're thinking about selling your business. I hope you're not, but any plans for the coming year, Tara, that you'd like to share with us?
I think, again, you like to constantly assess what it is that you're offering. Is it right for the now? What is coming in the future? And try and get ahead of that curve for the future. So there's very much, at the moment, we're developing some more indoor activities, because it does sometimes rain on Dartmoor. When it rains, it actually comes in sideways rather than straight down. So there's an investment happening there, and really looking at how we can capture children's minds, what we can do in terms of art and that type of creativity. And then being creative with the land that we have, so constantly looking at that. We'd like to add some wild swimming on the estate if we can do that. Quite a lot of health and safety and bits and pieces to go along with that. But you find those types of things maybe challenging sometimes, but it's about creating some new experience to be able to talk about and tell the story, and also working hard with our community on Dartmoor to offer more things around on Dartmoor, because so many people visit us, they have a great experience, but we say you just need to go out of the drive and turn left and you're on Dartmoor, and you really need to experience that wild experience of being on Dartmoor. So for anybody who hasn't experienced Dartmoor, I would highly recommend it. Autumn being my favourite time of year on Dartmoor as well.
Absolutely, and if they get lost in fog, it gives your housekeeping team a little bit more time to get their rooms ready, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Anything you're going to be doing differently next year, Paul?
Yeah, I think it's a new brand. It's only about 3 or 4 years old, and it's lots of fun. Robin demands that we have lots of fun with the team and that. So I know he's got a few ideas about the uniforms. He wants them changing again, which would be great. And different ideas for selling the hotel, We had this holiday to New York to get our database filled, and probably do that. So if you booked direct at the hotel, you went into a draw for a holiday to New York, because it's Brooklyn themed, and I know a few hoteliers over there. It was quite a cheap thing for us to do. But then the lockdown hit, so it took nearly 2 years to get them people over there, but never mind. It worked anyway. And different things like that, getting the guys dressed up, again with the Joker and things like that, just to add a bit of fun to the guest experience, but also make it a great place to come to. we could all get bogged down with, costs are going up, it's going to be tighter with suppliers and things like that. Recruitment's really difficult. We could get tied down with all that, but that's always going to be a constant. You might as well have a bit of fun while you go to work, and that's what we try and do.
What's next for you, Chris Penn?
I'm going to continue fighting for what I believe in, regardless of the challenges of setting new businesses up. I'm going to surround myself with people I enjoy being with and working with, because that's the most conducive way to creating successful things. So, hopefully building some new things, Peter.
Excellent. Now, I'm just going to give each of you some very, very quick-fire questions. One-word answer, if you like, and then we'll open it up to a conversation. We've only got a few minutes left. So start with you, Tara. Your own business is, of course, very successful, but what other hotel operators do you particularly admire?
I gave this some thought last night, actually, and I was thinking it's all, when we think about things like that, it's always based on an experience that we've had or what we've enjoyed. And actually, I went to New York, stayed in the one hotel in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
They have they were really forward-thinking in terms of their sustainability, and they locked down their power and put it back into the parks for a day every month, and they turned that into an adventure. So we had a survival pack, a bag, we had some glow sticks, and they turned something that could have been quite disruptive as a guest into something really great and fun.
That's different.
And that was in 2016, and I still talk about it now.
And if you weren't in the hotel business, what else would you like to have done?
Work in an art gallery. I think I still want to be around people. I love being in front of people, talking to people. I think it's an ever-changing landscape. It's like fashion. It's constantly changing and evolving, and quite peaceful as well. I think
Yes.
to be in there on a daily basis.
Very good.
That'd be me.
Right. Paul, other hotelier that you particularly look up to and admire?
Yeah, so there's a hotel in New York in Soho called the Crosby Street Hotel. It's absolutely fantastic, and I see some of the promotions of various hotels in the UK basically copying what they're doing. If you can't invent,
Why not?
copy it. It's
Why not?
It's a fantastic hotel. It's the best one I've been to anyway. Really good.
Excellent. And if you weren't in the hotel game, what other career do you think you might have gone for?
I did have another career. I was in the army 25 years, so this is like my favourite career, because the other one just took you around doing things that weren't so good to do.
Very good. I'm going to ask you exactly the same questions, Ben Harper. Who do you look up to in the hotel world?
I really enjoy watching what Lock have done in the apart hotel space, and that's not because I was involved in it, but it's the balance between scaling up and staying true to what was quite a brave brand ethos, I think is impressive. And the second question was?
If you weren't in the hotel business, what other career might you have chosen?
I was pulling pints in my local pub illegally at 14, so I think I was always destined to work
Hospitality?
in travel and
Nothing
hospitality.
bad? You're absolutely trapped
I
in it.
nearly joined the Navy at one point, which would have been quite a big error, I think, for someone like me. But
When I was a schoolboy, we were threatened with the armed forces as the only career options. I remember going to see the careers at master, and he said, well, what do you want, Army, Navy or Air Force? None of those, sir. And I remember there were posters at large at the time that said, join the Navy and feel a man, which rather put one or two of us off. Chris, how would life have taken, what path in life would you have taken if it hadn't been in the hotel world?
I would be caring for people with mental health issues.
Okay.
Because I think we have complicated brains that are hard to live with sometimes, and I think people need support.
Admirable. And the hotelier you most admire?
Rebecca, she owns an Airbnb in Bournemouth where you live in her garden. I think she's brilliant.
Can't say better than that. Right. Any questions from our... Oh, yes, we've got several. So start with the lady there, and then there's a gentleman at the front.
Thank you, panel. Thank you, Paul. Elizabeth Mystery, travel writer for The Times and various other people, and before that, editor of Boutique Hotelier. Question for the whole panel. Have any of you been upstairs to see the inclusive room here at the show? And if you have, could you tell me what you think of it? And if you haven't, have any of you ever been on holiday with someone with seen or unseen disabilities and stayed in a hotel with them And what did you learn from that experience?
I think you should do that one. You should be the last one to answer that, Paul. Ladies first.
Ooh, well, I haven't been upset, but I have had experience. My nephew's actually profoundly deaf, but with a cochlear implant, and it hilarious when he was younger. If he'd done something naughty, he'd just take it off and say, "Mum and Dad, I can't hear." But it's how when you experience it, you see it through different eyes when you're with somebody who's got disability, and it's not visually obvious. And it's interesting how people deal with it when they find out, or when you're making a booking. And I think actually that's the part that you learn the most about finding out about your guests before they arrive, and what you can do to make them as comfortable as possible, but also to look after them in the way that they need to be looked after.
Very good. And Elizabeth's question to you, Ben.
Great question. And no, shamedly, I haven't been upstairs, and I will. And the second bit is my mother suffers from MS, so she's disabled, and I think in the early days of that, I recall the problem around disabled parking spaces, and there not being enough, and them actually not being particularly well located. And I think the third bit is we have more to do, and I don't talk about the industry, I talk about our businesses, and it's something on the agenda at the moment to make sure that we're doing enough. And asking questions like that, I think, is really important.
Yes.
And learning from people like Paul, who's building a business on that, is really interesting.
Chris, I imagine you would say that mental health issues fall into the same category of the unseen disability or issue with.
Yes, I would, and I think Bespoke are clearly a leading light in terms of putting people's needs at the front of their businesses, regardless of what those needs are. But I think so many in the industry do look at these things, like with ESG, as checklists by which to do the bare minimum by which to be able to say it is conducive to looking after that need. Yes. And I think definitely more could be done to make those people feel more comfortable over and above the minimum of what is expected by legislation.
Righto. And Paul, finally you.
Yeah, I mean, there's no experts in this part of our industry, certainly not me, but I've become more aware since we've opened these hotels, and we've actually got staff. We are like you're talking about community. We employ people with challenges, both mental and physical, which is really important. And we've had staff sitting in wheelchairs, using sticks to get around the hotel so they understand a little bit about it. And we've had experts coming in talking about mindfulness, deafness training, putting appliances in. Some of them have worked and some of them haven't. And just have an understanding more so of that. Because the first thing we realised is, because we have this accessibility aspect to what we do, and it's only a couple of % of our volume, we become the place to come to. And people, the vast majority of people really like what we do, but then there's a small percentage who want you to do even more, and you've got to be really careful with our hotel. It's a great hotel, but it's not a hospital. And we've come up to that level where we can provide. I mean, we had a wedding a couple of weeks ago where the daughter had cystic fibrosis, and she was in a bed, and she has been in for life, and it was the only place that they could have a wedding in our hotel on the top floor, where their daughter could attend because she was in a bed. You know, and it's just every day you come in and people come up with not problems but issues that you have to solve because there's an expectation because of what you do. You can deliver on it, and you can deliver on 99.9% of the issues. You can either buy the solution in, or train the staff towards it, and then have a mindset of improvise and overcome. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, are we allowed, Phoebe, just the one more? So this gentleman had his hand up quite early at the front, please, and we'll wrap it up with your question.
Thank you. A question for all again. Do you see technology being an important part for the experience of your guests? And if that, what technology would you prefer to see in the near future for your guests?
Did you catch that? We didn't quite hear you, sir.
So
Technology.
is the guest experience, and if technology is an important part in that while they are in the hotel?
So technology as part of the guest experience, how important is that within the hotel? A short answer if you're able, please. Well, let's go in a row.
Yes.
Yes?
No, I think it's an enabler. We operate to a leisure audience who want technology in a way that they can associate with, but we look at it as an enabler to enhance the guest experience. And if there are efficiency gains as a consequence, then that's great, but we don't come about it the other way.
Okay. Tara?
Yes, as you say, it is important. I think in terms of our guests, we have a mix of a slightly older demographic, but we're finding now that everybody is consumed by technology on a daily basis, actually. And if you can't match up to that technology that people are used to, for example, in their own home,
Yes.
you're on the back foot already. And I think in terms of providing that experience, not everybody wants to talk to a person.
Yeah,
So
very good
it's,
point.
yeah, it's
The an-
important.
The answer for me is not necessarily, because if you're an owner, you want to put technology into something because the perception is you'll reduce your payroll costs, which is a big cost. But for experience for a guest and for staff, if you like, the interaction is the most important aspect of an experience in a hotel. You can go to many where it's really cold and it's featureless and you just have a self-check-in and you go through it and hardly there's a person in there. But it makes a great return for the owners, and that's great. But it's all about the experience for me.
Yep.
And
Okay.
technology's got to support that rather than be the predominant factor.
Yes. Yeah. Any point
Maybe.
you'd like to? Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If it makes things better for me as a guest, yes. If it makes things harder for me, no.
That's
And,
right.
and so I think too often it's, we need technology, and then you put technology in and you realise that actually you've completely killed the experience that you were trying to create. Because actually you've got to try and work out what right means when you're trying to turn the right bedside light off.
Yes, absolutely.
Is it that right, or is it that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If it had a switch on it, I could turn it off.
We're all different, aren't we? I mean, for me, luxury when I'm staying in a hotel is not being disturbed and having all the luxuries that I don't have at home. So no mobile phone signal would be a tick, and a Japanese loo would be another one. Anyway, we have to leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. We've run out of time. Thank you very much to Chris Penn, to Paul Bayliss, Tara Robinson, and Ben Harper. Thank you.